Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Sadler. Nice to see you. Last month, I wrote a letter to President Biden detailing the need for a sense of urgency in countering the real and proximate threat that exists from China today in the Western Pacific. And I see you provided in your statement, you echoed my call for a Battle Force 2025, a plan to address today's challenges in the region. And you also noted in your statement that the Navy struggles to maintain a persistent presence at the critical crossroads of the Pacific and Indian Oceans with little more than two warships on any given day. Yet just yesterday, the CNO continued to call for reducing the size of the fleet in the near term in order to provide funding for programs in the future by getting rid of what he terms as legacy platforms. I'd like to start with some simple yes/no questions. Do you agree that naval presence matters to counter Chinese activity in the Indo-PACOM AOR?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you agree that it requires ships in order to have this presence?
Yes, absolutely. Again, but
Yes.
not in isolation.
Admiral Swift, in your statement, you also noted that the nation's commitment to their shared strategic vision for a free and open maritime domain is the use of their military resources to underscore their resolve. And when you took command of Pacific Fleet in 2015, the People's Liberation Army Navy, the PLAN, had 255 battle force ships in its fleet, according to ONI. And today that number is 360, and in just a few more years, it'll be over 400. The Chinese continues to pursue and build on their illegal maritime claims in the region, along with their artificially imposed 9-dash line. And I would argue that persistent U.S. naval presence in the region is the best way to push back on these claims. So I'll ask you the same question. Do you agree that naval presence matters in the Indo-PACOM AOR?
I do, very much so.
And do you agree that it requires ships to have this presence?
Absolutely.
And in order to provide this urgently needed presence in the Indo-PACOM AOR and then the Western Pacific specifically, do you think it's prudent to decommission ships with remaining life, such as our cruisers and our LCS, when remaining platforms are years away, essentially decommission ships faster than we can replace them?
It depends. It's a complicated question. It's what are the trades that we're buying for reducing the number of ships? If they're not relevant in today's conflict, then it makes sense to me. But I would need more time to share the details behind.
Okay. I mean, just quickly referring to the cruisers, do you think that our cruiser fleet remains relevant in the current environment?
If you're talking about some of our older cruisers, you can see the challenge it has to maintain them. We've had one in particular, I'm sure Rep. Whitman understands this since it's right in his front yard. Trying to get that cruiser underway was very problematic because of its age.
Yes, I understand the Vela Gulf based here out of Norfolk in my district and tracking closely on the cruiser modernization. But just wanted to focus on the fact that in order to be present, we need to have enough ships. And I think that whatever we do over the next 4 years will ensure either the U.S. maintains maritime superiority in the Western Pacific or we cede that to China. And I feel that we desperately need a national defense strategy that acknowledges and prioritizes the maritime nature of this current strategic environment. Mr. Sadler, I know you've written extensively on this for the Heritage Foundation. Can you comment? Do you think the Navy has provided that plan today?
I think Navy needs to do a better job of getting that plan out. There's been a lot of due diligence that's done internally, looking at the engineering and the budget elements of the equation. But Navy definitely needs to do a better job of getting that message out.
So I've had some time to review the Future Naval Force Study, Structure Study, and other documents from the Navy. And every single one of these, they use a going-in assumption that this is all we're going to get. We're going to start with the fact that we're only going to see 2.1% growth, and then we're going to buy what we can buy out of that allocation that they assume they're going to get. Do you feel like they're self-constraining themselves rather than coming to the table and telling Congress, telling the American people, what force, what fleet we need, something along the lines of the 1984 maritime strategy that Secretary Lehman presented in the Reagan administration? Do you feel like that's lacking?
Yes, I agree very much with that with your assessment on that. I think it would be better to start with a threat-informed or threat-led analysis that then is budget-informed, but not the other way around. And then, of course, at the end, having something that's structured around an effective strategy So those three things have to go together, but the budget can't be the front end. We have to focus in on the military efficiencies and resiliency and strategic effectiveness first.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those comments, and appreciate following your work with the Heritage Foundation. And thank you all the witnesses for being here today. And I yield back.